Hey guys, I'm going to share something that dropped in for me the other day, and it absolutely blew my mind because I basically realized why I am the way that I am, and basically why my entire life has panned out the way that it has. And I think a lot of people will get value from this share, because ultimately what this is about is how our relationship with our parents impacts the type of partners and romantic relationships that we attract into our life. Now, one of two things can happen in this sort of situation. So on one hand, if you, say for example, you're a heterosexual woman and you have a father who you absolutely idolize, and he's, very generous and respectful and caring and, all these things, and you absolutely idolize him, what can tend to happen is you start moving through life with that unreasonable expectation of your partners that they're going to, have all the qualities that your dad has. And then that can lead to sort of a very unfulfilling life in relationships, because you're constantly longing for your partners to be your father. That's just an example. Or say, for example, heterosexual male has a mother who's very over accommodating and very generous, and she's constantly making buffet lunches and dinners for her son and whatever else. That person may then go through life with that unreasonable expectation on his female partners to be just like his mum, and just make a big fuss over him and make big buffet things for him, and then as a result he has a very unfulfilling life in relationships, because women can never meet his expectation of what his mum was like, essentially. And the other thing that can happen is the partners that you attract can actually reflect back at you an unresolved wound that you have from your parents. And this is something that I'm going to give an example with from my own experience, because this is actually what's dropped in for me. So I've gone through life with the belief that my relationship with my dad hasn't affected me. And it's crazy, because since I've been on this journey with personal development, timeline therapy, hypnotherapy, and really diving deep into my unconscious mind and the patterns and the beliefs and how my my life experiences have actually made who I am today, I've discovered that my relationship with my dad has had a massive impact on me, and it's basically totally made me who I am today. And it's created it's why I attract the sort of relationships and partners that I do. So when I was about 4 years old, this is around the time when I started to heavily suppress unconsciously negative emotion. Because a lot of things happened, witnessed a lot of things, and as a 4-year-old it was too much to handle, so just shut that part of myself out. And so I've gone through life thinking that I'm just a really happy, positive person and whatever else, but in reality, from a young age, I've just been suppressing negative emotion on autopilot, and therefore I haven't had the capacity to experience full range of emotion, only sort of the positive emotions, but I've never properly tapped into the negative. And a big part of that was because some of the personality traits that my dad had growing up, one of the things that would happen was he'd kind of flip between two type of personalities. So the first one was very funny and fun and charismatic, and that was the personality that I loved. And then the other personality that he'd slip between is very cold, emotionally distant, and that kind of thing. And so as a child, it'd be like a roller coaster, where he's really funny and fun, and then I drop down because then he's really cold and stuff. And what I've been realizing is, and this is why I've shut myself off emotionally as a child, because it's just too much to handle to go on this constant, unpredictable roller coaster of emotion with your parent. So the way this has played out in my life is I've actually been attracting partners who have that same pattern of just being really funny and fun and loving, and then dropping down into the cold and emotionally distant, and then back up to the loving, and then just up and down, and just taking me on that roller coaster. And ultimately what these partners are doing is they're reflecting, or they're shining a light on an unresolved wound, parental wound that I have. And that's why I continue to attract these partners. And what's interesting about that is ultimately the decision I made when I was 4 years old, when I'd be taken on these roller coasters, is that love is unsafe. love is unsafe because it's unpredictable and that kind of thing. And so I end up attracting partners that are reconfirming that belief. They're taking me on this roller coaster. So then I'm reconfirming the belief that love is unsafe, love is unsafe. And here's evidence. This, just keeps happening. And it's funny because these partners that I'm attracting that is taking me on these roller coasters, they're actually projecting back at me their belief that love is unsafe. Because that's the other thing. Everyone that we meet in life in some way is actually a reflection of ourselves. So everyone's reflecting the truth back on us. And we're all just mirror images of each other. And that's why we sort of meet these people, because we're all here to sort of teach each other lessons, shine lights on our areas of ourselves that, have wounds that need healing, or we might feel triggered by someone. We feel really annoyed, like, why are they so, they're so arrogant and confident, when in reality, it could be that you feel so triggered by that because within yourself, you don't feel like you're confident and you're outgoing. And so you look at people who are confident, outgoing, and you feel triggered by that. But it's just shining a light of an area of yourself that needs healing and something you don't accept of yourself. And this happens a lot in relationships. So these partners that I've been attracting that are taking me on these roller coasters, they're essentially reflecting back at me their belief that love is unsafe. And often these partners that I've been attracting, they've had upbringings where their parents split up at a young age. They go through life watching their parents with multiple partners, lots of heartbreaks. Often the parents are bagging each other out to the child, when they're growing up. So they develop the belief that love is unsafe. And the way that the pattern that develops from that belief for them is that roller coaster effect. So the way this plays out in relationships is, so they'll be really loving and funny and fun. That's the part that I love. And that will cause me to be like, oh, wow, this is great. And then because we get too close, that triggers their flight response, because love is unsafe. And if you get too close, that's when you open yourself up to hurt. So then they go to the cold and distant place. And then when they go down to the drop of that roller coaster where they're cold and distant, that then triggers my belief that love is unsafe. So then I might become emotionally distant. And then by me going emotionally distant, they'll then be like, oh no, love is unsafe. So they want to they go back up to the peak of it, really loving and funny and fun, which then makes me like, oh wow, I love this. So I become, loving that. And then because we get too close, that triggers their fear that love is unsafe. So then they go to the cold and distant part. And it's just like this constant cycle that just goes on forever. And that's what life is. Life is just a bunch of people projecting each other's patterns on each other. So I developed the belief that love is unsafe when I was 4 years old because of my dad running his pattern. And ultimately, he was just probably projecting his belief that love is unsafe due to his upbringing. And so he's projecting his belief that love is unsafe, running his pattern. I'm projecting my belief that love is unsafe and running my pattern on my partner. And then he's projecting back at me his belief that love is unsafe, and he's projecting his pattern back on me. And it's just like this ongoing cycle of everyone just projecting each other's patterns on each other, which ultimately stems from the exact same belief system. And this is all because as a 4-year-old, a 4-year-old isn't old enough, hasn't had enough life experience to have the capacity to fully understand something. And a 4-year-old, you look at your parents and that's your idea of reality. That's where you're basing all your beliefs from. And it's the same with my partners. They've got these patterns that they've been running their entire life based on a decision they made when they were 4-year-olds, when they're 5 years old, 6 years old. And as soon as I realized that I've basically gone through my entire life with the belief that love is unsafe, and I've been running these patterns that do not serve me, and I've been attracting partners who have that same belief that love is unsafe, and they're projecting their patterns on me, in that moment, that belief totally just left me. I released it because I made that decision when I was 4 years old. A 4-year-old doesn't have the capacity to sort of make that judgment of something. And so I do encourage you to sort of look at your own relationships with your parents and look at the type of romantic partners that you've been attracting into your life. And notice that if you feel triggered by something that your partner's doing, they're simply shining a light on an area of yourself that needs healing. And as long as you continue to hold onto that wounding, you'll continue to attract partners who have the same wounding. And it might not appear that they have the same wounding because they're running a different pattern to you. We're all just, we can both have the same wounding, but that wounding can then cause a different type of pattern, but ultimately it's coming from the same place. So use your triggers as a guiding light of areas of yourself that need healing. Heal that wound, and then you will no longer attract partners that are reflecting that wound on yourself. Okay, so I hope this share has been valuable to people watching, because my God, that realization blew my mind, and yeah, it's not going to affect me anymore. So I'm very pleased about that. Anyway, I hope you're all having a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.